Hello, everyone. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution. This is our weekly CWG book discussion group, and we are reading Friendship with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And I'm sorry, what page did you say?
In the paperback, it's page 63.
Okay.
In Kindle, it's page 63 also, according to this.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Well, we're going to reread what we read last week because we thought it was such a thick chapter, long as well. But we kind of voted on it at the end of the last call, just saying we think we want to read it again to make sure we have our heads wrapped around the information. So, without further ado, go ahead, Linda.
Okay, this is chapter 5 of Friendship with God, and I'm going to do the tail end of chapter 4 leading into it because God is speaking. At the end of chapter 4, God says, great, so here's how to do that, have a friendship with me. Here's how the whole human race can have a friendship with God. First, you have to know me. I thought I did know you. Only casually. You don't know me intimately yet. We've had a good conversation at last, but it's going to take more than that. Fine. So how do I get to know you better? Willingness. Willingness? You have to have a real willingness. You have to be willing to see me where you find me, not only where you expect to find me. You have to see me where you find me and find me where you see me. I don't understand what that means. A lot of people see me, but don't find me. It's like a cosmic game of Where's Waldo. They're looking right at me, but they don't find me. But how can we make sure we recognize you? That's a great word you chose to use there. To recognize is to know again. That is, to recognize. You have come to know me again. You have to come to know me again. Well, how do we do that? First, you must believe that I exist. Belief precedes willingness as a tool with which to know God. You must believe that there is a God to know. Well, most people believe in God. Surveys show that in recent years, belief in God has actually increased on our planet. Yes, I'm happy to say that the largest number of you do believe in me. So it's not your belief in me that creates problems. It's your belief about me. One of the things you believe about me is that I do not want you to know me. Some of you even believe that you dare not so much as utter my name. Others feel that you should not write the word God, but out of respect should write G-D. Still others of you say that it's all right to speak my name, but that it must be my correct name. And that if it's an incorrect name, that you will have committed blasphemy. But whether you call me Jehovah, Yahweh, God, Allah, or Charlie, I'm still who I am, what I am, where I am, and I will not stop loving you because you've got my name wrong, for heaven's sake. So stop quarreling over what to call me. It is pitiful, isn't it? That's your word, reflecting a judgment. I'm merely observing what's so. Even many of those religions which are not arguing about me, about my name, are teaching that for you to seek too much knowledge of God is unwise, and for you to say that God has actually talked to you is heresy. So, while a belief in God is necessary, your belief about God is also important. That's where willingness comes in. You must not only believe in God to know me, you must also be willing to really know me, not simply know what you think you know about me. If your beliefs about me make it impossible to know me as I really am, then all the belief in the world won't work. You'll continue to know what you think you know instead of what is really so. You must be willing to suspend what you imagine you already know about God in order to know God as you never imagined. That is the key here, because you have many imaginings about God which bear no resemblance to reality. How can I get to this place of willingness? You are already there, or you wouldn't be spending time with this book. Now expand on this experience. Open yourself to new ideas, new possibilities of me. If I was your best friend and not your father, think of what you could tell me, what you could ask of me. In order to know God, you have to be ready, willing, and able. Belief in God is the beginning. Your belief in some sort of higher power, in some form of deity, makes you ready. Next, your openness to some new thoughts about God, thoughts you've never had before, thoughts that may even shake you up a bit, like our friend who art in heaven, signals that you are willing. Finally, you must be able. If you're simply unable to see God in any of the new ways to which you have opened yourself, you will have completely disabled the mechanism by which you could come to know God in truth. You must be able to embrace a God who loves and embraces you without condition. Be able to welcome into your life a God that welcomes you into the kingdom, no questions asked. Be able to stop punishing yourself for acknowledging a God who will not be punishing you, and be able to talk with a God who has never stopped talking to you. All of these are radical ideas. Churches do indeed call these heresies. And so in the irony of all ironies, you have to abandon the church in order to know God. Without a doubt, you will have to at least abandon some of the church's teachings. For churches teach of a God whom you are told you cannot know and whom you cannot choose as a friend. For what friend would you have who would punish you for every misdeed? And what kind of a friend considers it a misdeed to simply be called by the wrong name? In my conversations with God, I was told many things which contradicted everything I thought about you. I know that you believe in God, or you would never have had those conversations with God to begin with. So you were ready to have a friendship with me, but were you willing? I see that you were, because willingness takes great courage, and you've demonstrated that courage, not only by exploring other non-traditional points of view, but by doing it so publicly. Thus, your conversation not only allowed you to undertake these explorations, but millions of others along with you. They did so vicariously through your 3 published books, which have been eagerly read worldwide. A huge signal that the general public is willing now too. Are you able to now know me and thus have more than a conversation, but also a friendship with God? Yes, because I have no trouble moving from my old beliefs about you to an acceptance of the new ideas about you which were given to me in the conversations. In fact, to be truthful, many of those ideas were ideas I already had. In this sense, the CWG trilogy is not so much a revelation as it was a confirmation. My mail over the last 5 years tells me that it was that way for thousands of others as well. And this is as good a place as any to tell the story of how the book was written. The Conversations with God dialogue was not written as a book. Unlike the material I'm now writing, I had no idea when the dialogue began that it was ever going to see print. As far as I knew, I was having a private process to which no one else would ever be privy. That process began on one night in February of 1992 when I was on the verge of falling into a chronic depression. Nothing had been going right in my life. My relationship with my significant other was kaput. My career hit a dead end, and even my health was failing. Usually in my life, it had been one thing or another, but now it was everything at once. The whole construction was collapsing, and I couldn't seem to do anything to stop it. It wasn't the first time that I'd stood by helplessly, watching what I thought would be a permanent relationship dissolve right before my eyes. Nor was it the second, third, or fourth. I was becoming very angry about my inability to hold a relationship together, my apparent total lack of understanding about what it takes to do that, and the fact that nothing I tried seemed to work. I was coming to feel that I had simply not been given the equipment to play the game of life, and I was furious. My career wasn't going any better. Things had pretty much dwindled to nothing. My over 30 years of hovering around the broadcasting and journalism businesses, reaping pitifully meager rewards. I was 48 years old with nothing much to show for a half a century on the planet. Not surprisingly, my health had taken a downhill turn as well. I'd suffered a broken neck in a car accident a few years before and hadn't ever fully recovered. Prior to that in my life, I'd had a collapsed lung, suffered from ulcers, arthritis, and severe allergies. I felt at 48 as if my body was falling apart. And so it was that on that February night in 1992, I awoke with anger in my heart. Tossing and turning, I tried to go back to sleep. I was a mountain of frustration. Finally, I threw back the covers and stomped out of the bedroom. I went where I always go in the middle of the night when I'm seeking wisdom. But there was nothing decent in the refrigerator, so I found myself on the couch instead. There I sat, stewing in my own juice. Finally, in the moonlight streaming through the window, I saw a yellow legal pad on the coffee table in front of me. I picked it up, found a pen, flicked on a lamp, and I began writing an angry letter to God. What does it make life work? What have I done to deserve such a continuing struggle? And what are the rules here? Somebody tell me the rules. I'll play, but first somebody has to tell me the rules. After you tell me, don't change them. On and on like that I wrote, scribbling madly all over the pad, writing very large as I do when I'm angry, pressing down so hard a person could hold a sheet 5 pages lower up to the light and see what I'd written. Finally, I'd emptied myself out. The anger, frustration, and near hysteria had dissipated. But I remember thinking, I've got to tell my friends about this. A yellow legal pad in the middle of the night might be the best therapy after all. I held out my arm to put down the pen, but it wouldn't leave my hand. That's amazing, I thought to myself. A few minutes of intensive writing and your hand cramps so badly you can't let go of the pen. I waited for my muscles to relax, but was struck instead with a feeling that there was something more I needed to write. I watched as I brought the pen back to the paper, fascinating myself even as I did it, because I knew of nothing more I wanted to write, and yet here I was acting as if there was more to be written. No sooner had that pen reached the pad than my mind filled with a thought. The voice was said to me by a voice. The thought was said to me by a voice. It was the softest, kindest, most gentle voice I'd ever heard. Except that it wasn't a voice. It was what I could only call a voiceless voice, or maybe more like a feeling that has words all over it. The words that I heard in this way were, Neil, do you really want answers to all of these questions? Or are you just venting? I remember thinking, I am venting. But if you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. To which I received the reply, you are sure as hell about a lot of things. But wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? And I found myself answering, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Thereafter came the most extraordinary thoughts, ideas, communications, call them what you will, that I've ever experienced. The thoughts were so stunning that I found myself writing them down and responding to them. The ideas being given to me, through me, were answering my questions, but they were also bringing up other questions I'd never had before. So here I was, having a pen and paper dialogue. It went on for 3 hours. Then suddenly it was 7:30 in the morning, and the house was starting to come alive. And so I put the pad and the pen away. It was such an interesting experience, but I didn't make much more of it until the next night when I was awakened out of a sound sleep at 4:20 in the morning, as abruptly as if someone had come into the room and flipped on the light switch. I sat up in bed, wondering, what was that all about? Then I felt an urge, pull to get out of bed and back to the legal pad. Still wondering what was going on and why, I stumbled around the house, found the pad, and returned to my nesting place on the living room sofa. I began writing again, picking up right where I had left off, asking questions and receiving answers. I don't think I know to this day what made me begin to write it all down or save the stuff I'd written. I guess I thought I was going to be keeping a journal or a special little diary. I had no idea that one day it would be published, let alone read from Tokyo to Toronto, San Francisco to Sao Paulo. It is true at one point in the dialogue, the voice said, this will one day become a book. But I thought to myself, yeah, you and 100 other people are going to send your middle of the night mental meanderings to a publisher who's going to say, oh, of course, why, we'll publish that at once. And that first dialogue went on for over a year, me being awakened in the darkness at least 3 nights a week. One of the questions I'm most frequently asked is, when did you decide? When did I know that it was God I was talking to? During the first several weeks of the experience, I didn't know what to think about what was happening. At first, a part of me thought I was just talking to myself. And then somewhere along the way, I wondered if it couldn't be my so-called higher self I'd heard about from, which I was drawing from. It was an interesting experience. Okay, wait a second. Hang on a second. My Kindle jumped on me. Hang on. Okay. But finally, I had to let go of my self-judgments and fear of ridicule and call it exactly what it seemed to be: a conversation with God. This occurred the night I heard the statement, there is no such thing as the 10 Commandments. Nearly half of what ultimately became Book 1 had been written when this particular spectacular assertion was made. I'd been exploring the question of the path to God, and which was the right one. Do you earn our way to heaven by being good, I wanted to know. Or are we free to act as we wish without being punished by God? Which is it, I asked, traditional values or make it up as we go along? Which is it, the 10 Commandments or the 7 Steps to Enlightenment? When the reply was that the 10 Commandments don't exist, I was flabbergasted. Even more flabbergasting, though, was the explanation. Oh, there had been 10 statements, all right, and they'd been given to Moses for sure, But they were not commandments. They were, I was told, commitments made by God to the human race, ways that we could know that we were on the path back to God. That was unlike anything else in the dialogue at that point. This was breakthrough information. Some of what I'd heard in the conversation up to that moment, I knew I had heard before from other teachers or other sources, or perhaps read somewhere. But such astonishing statements about the Ten Commandments, I knew I'd never heard before. Furthermore, these ideas violated everything I'd ever been thought about the subject. Years later, I received a letter from a theology professor at a major East Coast university saying this was the most original new perspective on the Ten Commandments to be published in 300 years. And that while he wasn't sure he agreed with the CWG's statements, they would provide his theology classes with rich material for serious debate and discussion for many years to come. At the time, though, I didn't need any letters from the theology professors to know that what I'd heard was very special and came from a very special source. I began to experience that source as God. Nothing has changed my mind about it since. In fact, the information which came through in the rest of 800-page dialogue, including the extraordinary information about life among highly evolved beings in the universe in Book 3, and the outline for building a new society on planet Earth in Book 2, has only made me more convinced than ever. I'm very glad to hear that. And it's interesting that you should point to this portion of our dialogue, because this was also the section where I last talked about knowing God. It was there that I said, in order to truly know God, you have to come out of your mind. Come to me, I said, along the path of your heart, not through a journey of your mind. You will never find me in your mind. In other words, you can't really know me if you think about me too much. That's because your thoughts contain nothing more than your previous ideas about God. Yet the reality of me will not be found in your previous ideas, but in your present moment experience. Think of it this way. Your mind holds the past. Your body holds the present. Your soul holds the future. Put another way, the mind analyzes and remembers. The body experiences and feels. And the soul observes and knows. If you want to access what you remember about God, look to your mind. If you want to access what you feel about God, look to your body. And if you want to access what you know about God, look to your soul. I'm confused. I thought that feelings were the language of the soul. They are, yet your soul talks through your body, which gives you a here and now experience of your truth. If you want to know your truth on any subject, look to your feelings. Checking in with your body is the fastest way of doing this. I see. Well, I call it giving it the tummy test. There's an old saying, the tummy knows. And it's true. Your stomach actually provides you with a very good barometer. So if you want to get in touch with what your soul knows about the future, including the possibilities surrounding your future experience of God, listen to your body. Listen to what your body is telling you right now. Your soul knows everything, past, present, and future. It knows who you are and who you seek to be. It knows me intimately because it is the part of me that is closest to you. Oh, wow, I like that. The soul is the part of God that is closest to you. What a great statement. And it's true. So to know me, all you have to truly know is your own soul. To have a friendship with God, all I really have to do is have a friendship with myself. Exactly. That sounds so simple. It's almost too good to be true. It's true, trust me, but it's not simple. If knowing yourself, much less having a friendship with yourself, was simple, you would have done it a long time ago. Can you help me? That's what we're doing here. I'm going to lead you back to yourself, and thus lead you back to me. And this you will one day do for others. You will give people back to themselves, and thus back to me. And when you find yourself, you find me. There I have always been, and there I will always be. How can I have a friendship with myself? By coming to know who you really are, by becoming clear about who you are not. I thought I have a friendship with myself. I like me a lot, maybe a bit too much. As I said, if I've had any personality problem in my life, it's been my ego. A big ego is not a sign of one who likes oneself, but just the opposite. If people brag and show off a lot, it raises the question, what do they dislike about themselves so much that they feel that they have to get others to like them, to compensate? Oh, that almost hurts. A painful observation is almost always a truthful one. You're having growing pains, my son. It's all right. So you mean I really don't like myself that much, and I'm trying to compensate for a lack of self-love by substituting love of others? Well, only you can know that, and yet you're the one who said you had an ego problem. I observe that true self-love disappears the ego. It does not enlarge it. Put another way, the larger your understanding of who you really are, the smaller your ego. When you know who you really are fully, your ego is fully gone. But my ego is my sense of self, no? No, no. Your ego is who you think that you are. It has nothing to do with who you really are. Doesn't that contradict an earlier teaching that it's okay to have an ego? No, it is okay to have an ego. In fact, it's very okay, because an ego is necessary in order for you to have the experience you're having now, as what you imagine to be separate entity in a relative world. Okay, now I'm thoroughly confused. That's okay. Confusion is the first step towards wisdom. Folly is thinking you have all the answers. So can you help me here? It's good to have an ego or not? That's a good question. You've entered the relative world, what I call the realm of the relative, in order to experience what you cannot experience in the realm of the absolute. What you seek to experience is who you really are. In the realm of the absolute, you can know this, but you cannot experience it. The desire of your soul is to know itself experientially. The reason that you cannot experience any aspect of who you are in the realm of the absolute is that in this realm, there is no aspect that you are not. The absolute is just that, the absolute, the all of everything, the alpha and the omega, with nothing in between. There are no degrees of absoluteness. Degrees of things can only exist in the relative. The realm of the relative was created so that you can know yourself as magnificent experientially. In the realm of the absolute, there is nothing but magnificence. And so magnificence is not. That is, it cannot be experienced. It cannot be known experientially because there is no way to experience magnificence in the absence of that which is not magnificent. In truth, you are one with everything. This is your magnificence. Yet, you cannot know the magnificence of being one with everything while you are one with everything, because there is nothing else. And so being one with everything means nothing. In your experience, you are simply you, and you have no experience of the magnificence of that. The only way for you to experience the magnificence of being one with everything is for there to be some state or condition in which not being one with everything is possible. Yet, since everything is one in the realm of the absolute, which is the ultimate reality, something not being one with everything is impossible. What is not impossible, however, is the illusion of not being one with everything. It was for the purpose of creating this illusion, then, that the realm of the relative was created. It is like an Alice in Wonderland world in which things are not what they seem to be, and in which things seem to be what they are not. Your ego is your chief tool in creating this illusion. It is that device which allows you to imagine yourself as separate from all of the rest of you. It is the part of you that thinks of yourself as being an individual. You're not an individual, and yet you must be individualized in order to comprehend and appreciate the experience of the whole. And so in this sense, it is good to have an ego. Given what you are trying to do, it is good. Yet too much ego is, given what you are trying to do, not good. That's because what you are trying to do is use the illusion of separateness to better comprehend and appreciate the experience of oneness, which is who you really are. When the ego becomes so enlarged that all you can see is the separate self, all chance of experiencing the unified self is gone, and you are lost. You have literally become lost in the world of your illusion, and you may remain lost in that illusion for many lifetimes until you finally bring yourself out of it, or until somebody else, another soul, pulls you out. This is what is meant by giving you back to yourself. This is what the Christian churches meant by their concept of a savior. The only mistake those churches made was in declaring themselves and their religions to be the only way to be saved, thus reinforcing once again the illusion of separateness, the very illusion from which they would seek to save you. So you ask if it is good to have an ego, and that is a very large question. It all depends on what you are trying to do. If you are using the ego as a tool with which to ultimately experience the only reality, it's good. If the ego is using you to stop you from experiencing that reality, then it is not good. To the degree that it is stopping you from doing what you came here to do, It is not good. Yet you are always free, at free choice about what you remain here to do. If you find it enjoyable to not experience yourself as a part of the one, you will be given the choice of not having the experience just now. Only when you've had enough of that separateness, enough of the illusion, enough of the loneliness, and enough of the painfulness will you seek to find your way home. And then you will find that I will be there, that I have always been there. Always. Whoa. Ask a question, get an answer. Especially when you're asking God. Yes, I see. I mean, it's not as if you have to stop and think about these things. No, the answer is right there on top of my tongue, on the tip of my tongue. It's right on the tip of your tongue, too, I might add. What does that mean? I mean, I'm not keeping these answers to myself. I never have. All the answers to all of life's questions are quite literally on the tip of your tongue. That's another way of saying, as you speak it, so it will be. Well, according to that, if I say everything you say is hogwash, then all that you've just told me is not true. That's true. No, it's not true. I mean, it's true that it's not true. But if I say that everything you say is not true, then it's not true that it's not true. That's true. Unless it's not. Unless it's not. You see, you are creating your own reality. That's what you say. That's right. But if I don't believe what you say, then you will not experience it as your reality. But catch the closed circle here. Because if you do not believe that you create your own reality, then you will experience your reality as something that you did not create, proving that you create your own reality. Oh boy, I feel like I'm in the Hall of Mirrors. You are, my wonderful one, in more ways than you could know. For everything that you see is a reflection of you. And if the mirrors of life show you distortions, it's a reflection of your distorted thoughts about you. Well, that gets me back to where I was before we got off on this tangent. There are no tangents, my son, only different routes to the same direct destination. Okay, so I was asking you, how can I have a friendship with myself? You said I can know God when I know my own soul, that I can have a friendship with God when I have a friendship with myself. And I asked you how I can do that. I thought I had a friendship with myself already. Some people do, some people don't. For some people, at best, what they have is a truce. Maybe what you said about a large ego being a sign that I don't like myself is true. I'm going to think about that. It's not that people don't like themselves completely. It's just there's a part of themselves they don't like. And so the ego compensates by trying to get other people to like them. Of course, they don't show the part of themselves they don't like to others until this growing intimacy of a relationship makes it impossible not to. When they finally do, and when the other person acts surprised, and maybe even negatively, then they can assure themselves that they were right about this aspect of themselves being unlikable, and the whole circle continues. It's a very complex process, and you move through it every day. You should have been a psychologist. I invented psychology. I know, I was just kidding. I know. You see, kidding is a thing people do when they, enough. You're right, enough, I was just kidding. You make me laugh, you know that? I make you laugh, you make me laugh. That's what I like, a God with a sense of humor. Laughter's good for the soul. Couldn't agree more. But could we get back to the question? How can I have a friendship with myself? By coming to clarity on who you really are and who you are not. Once you know who you really are, you'll fall in love with yourself. Once you fall in love with yourself, you'll fall in love with me. How can I come to clarity about who I am and who I am not? Let's start with who you are not first, because this is where the biggest problem is. Okay, who am I not? You are not, first and foremost, I want to tell you that you are not your past. You are not your yesterdays. You are not what you did yesterday, what you said yesterday, or what you thought yesterday. A lot of people are going to want you to think that you are your yesterdays. In fact, some others are going to insist that you be. They will do this because they have a big investment in you continuing to show up that way. For one thing, they can be right about you. For another, they can depend on you. When other people see that you you as bad, they don't want you to change because they want to continue being right about you. This allows them to justify how they are treating you. When other people see you as good, they don't want you to change because they want to continue being able to depend on you. This allows them to justify how they expect you to treat them. What you are invited to do is live in the moment. Create yourself anew in the present moment. This allows you to separate yourself from your former ideas about you, a remarkable percentage of you, a remarkable percentage of which are founded in other people's ideas about you. Well, how can I forget my past? Other people's ideas of me are based in part, at least, on their experience of me, on my behaviors in the past. What do? Just forget that I did those things? Pretend that they didn't matter? Neither. Do not seek to forget your past. Seek to change your future. The worst thing you could do is forget your past. Forget your past and you forget all that it has to show you, all that it gave you as its gift. Neither pretend that it doesn't matter. Acknowledge that it does matter, and that precisely because it does, you have decided not to repeat certain behaviors ever again. Yet, once you've made that decision, let go of your past. Letting go of it does not mean forgetting it. It means stopping the holding on, ending the clinging to your past as if you are going to drown without it. You are drowning because of it. Stop using your past to keep you afloat in your ideas of who you are. Let go of these old logs and swim to a new shore. Even people with a wonderful past are not served by holding on to it as if this is who they are. This is called resting on your laurels, and nothing stops growth faster. Neither rest on your laurels nor dwell on your failures. Rather, start over, begin anew in each golden moment of now. But how can I change behaviors that have become habitual or character traits that have become ingrained? By asking yourself one simple question. Is this who I am? It's the most important question you'll ever ask yourself. You may ask it profitably before and after every decision in your life, from what clothes to wear to what job to take, from whom to marry to whether to marry at all. And certainly it is a key question to ask when you catch yourself in behaviors you say you want to discontinue. And this will change long-held character traits or behaviors? Try it. Okay, I will. Good. After I decide who I'm not, and after I free myself from the idea that I am my past, how do I discover who I am? It's not a process of discovery, it's the process of creation. You cannot discover who you are because you should be coming from ground zero when you decide this. You're not deciding this based on your discoveries, but rather on preferences. Do not be who you thought you were. Be who you wish you were. Oh, that's a big difference. It's the biggest difference of your life. Up to now, you've been being who you thought you were. From now on, you're going to be a product of your highest wishes. Can I really change that much? Of course you can. But remember, it's not about changing and thus suddenly becoming acceptable. You're acceptable right now in the eyes of God. You are only changing because you choose to change. You choose a newer version of yourself. The grandest version of the greatest vision I've ever had about who I am. Precisely. And a simple question like, is this who I am? Will bring me to that? It will, unless it won't. But it's a very, very powerful tool. It can be transformational. It is powerful because it contextualizes what is happening and makes it clear what you are doing. I observe that many people do not know what they are doing. What do you mean? What are they doing? They're creating themselves. But many people do not understand this. They don't see this as what is happening, that this is what they're doing. They do not know that this is in fact the purpose of all life. Because they do not know this, they do not realize how important, how impactful every decision is. Every decision you make, every decision, is not a decision about what to do. It's a decision about who you are. When you see this, when you understand it, everything changes. You begin to see life in a new way. All events, occurrences, and situations turn into opportunities to do what you came here to do. We came here with a mission, didn't we? Oh, yes, most assuredly. It's the purpose of your soul to announce and declare, to be and to express, to experience and to fulfill who you really are. And who is that? Whoever you say you are. Your life lived is your declaration. Your choices define you. Every act is an act of self-definition. So yes, a simple 5-word question like that can change your life. Because that question, if you remember to ask it, places what's going on in new context, a much larger context. Especially if you ask that question at decision-making time. There is no time that is not decision-making time. You are always making decisions, all the time. There is no time when you are not making decisions. Even when you're sleeping, you are making decisions. In fact, some of your biggest decisions are made while you're sleeping. And some people are sleeping even when it looks like they're awake. Someone once said we're a planet of sleepwalkers. They were not far from the truth. So that's the magic question, eh? Yeah. That's the magic question. The 5-word magic question. Actually, there are 2 5-word magic questions. These questions, asked at the right moment, can propel you forward in your own evolution faster than you might ever imagine. The questions are, is this who I am? And what would I love to do? What would love do now? With your decision to ask and answer those questions at every juncture, you will move from a student to the teacher of the new gospel. The new gospel? What's that? In time, my friend. In due time. We have much to say before we get to that. Then can I go back to guilt just one more time? What about people who have done such horrible things, killed people, for example, or raped women or abused children, but they can't just forgive themselves? What they have done in the past, I'm going to say again, is not who they are. It may be who others think that they are. It may even be who they think that they are, but it is not who they really are. But most of these people can't hear that. They're too consumed with their own guilt, or perhaps with bitterness at the cards life has dealt them. Some of them are even afraid that they'll do it again, so they see their life as hopeless, pointless. No life is pointless. And I tell you that no life is hopeless. Fear and guilt are the only enemies of man. You've told me that before. And I'll tell you again, fear and guilt are your only enemies. If you let go of fear, fear lets go of you. If you release guilt, guilt will release you. How do we do that? How do we let go of fear and guilt? By deciding to. It's an arbitrary decision based on nothing but personal preference. You simply change your mind about yourself and how you choose to feel. It is, as your Harry Palmer says, only a decision is required to change one's mind. Even a murderer can change his mind. Even a rapist can recreate himself anew. Even a child abuser can be redeemed. All it takes is a decision deep in the heart and soul and mind. This is not who I am. That goes for any of us, whatever our misdeeds, large or small, that goes for any of you. Yet how can I forgive myself if I've done the unforgivable? There is no such thing as the unforgivable. There is no offense that is so great that I would refuse to forgive it. Even the strictest of your religions teach that. They may not agree on the way of atonement. They may not agree on the path, but they all agree that there is a path, a way. There is a path. What is that way? How can I achieve atonement if I myself consider my offenses unforgivable? The opportunity for atonement comes to you automatically at what you call death. You must realize that atonement is just that. It is at one ment. It is the awareness that you and all others are one. It is the understanding that you are one with everything, including me. This experience you will have. You will remember this immediately after death, after you depart your body. All souls experience their at-one-ment in a most interesting way. They are allowed to move through once again every moment of the life they've completed and to experience it not only from their viewpoint, but from the viewpoint of everyone else who was affected by that moment. They get to rethink every thought, re-say every word, redo every deed, and to experience its effect on every person it affected, as if they were that other person, which they are. They get to know that they are, experientially, at this moment. The statement, we are all one, will no longer be a concept. It will be an experience. I'm going to stop. It's 11.
Wow. Again, it's just so packed with so much information. I would like to suggest that, because I'm sure there's a lot of things people would like to say, that if you have the time, try to reread or try to listen to the recording of today's call so that we can actually get into some of this stuff that seems very heady, like the absolute. And I mean, there's a few places where my head just goes, whack, don't get it. But and right this page that you just stopped reading on, it strikes me as that could be a living hell, going through, a replay of your life, and you get to be every player in the scene. But it is time for this to be over today, and next week is the 25th, and we obviously will not meet on the 1st because that's Easter Sunday. Okay. Not a lot of room for conversation or meditation, but we will do it. Pick it up next week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Shwana, meditation.
Love you all.
Love you all.
I just want to say, does anybody remember that? Wasn't it a Robin Williams movie? What Dreams May Come? Is that it? There's one where you die, where they die, or Defending Your Life. I don't know. There's
Defending
a movie.
Your Life. It's defending.
That's it. Yeah, Defending Your Life. That last paragraph where it's talking about you see everything, and it reminded me of that movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
All right. Love you all.
Love you all.
Love you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful.
Blessings.